Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of our show, 2 Weeks Tonight. In this episode, we will be talking about a new phenomenon that has been on the rise and affecting us, the young generation. The generation that, by this time, should be leading a college life or approaching graduation. Lately, however, we've seen a rise in young people, including students from all around the world, leave behind their families, their education, their surroundings, and travel to countries like Syria and Iraq to fight under the umbrella of different organizations. We've heard of many examples around the world of students like 20-year-old Nasser, who was offered a chance to study medicine by several universities in the UK, and who declined these offers and instead joined ISIS insurgents in Syria with his 17-year-old brother earlier this year. This phenomenon has also been a very hot topic in the news lately. Let's watch.
ومواصلة عمله تحت اسم دولة العراق الإسلامية ضمن ولايته المكانية في العراق.
أليس من السخف الشديد أن يخشى البعض من الجماعات الإسلامية المقاتلة في سوريا؟
Hervé Gourdel, c'est vous, Hervé Gourdel, c'est moi. Enlèvement, décapitation, mise en scène effroyable, tout est fait pour instiller la peur et c'est précisément cette peur qu'il faut combattre.
Islamic State militants waging war in Iraq and Syria have managed to carry out a successful global recruitment campaign.
And I believe that that is precisely the agenda of the Islamic State, to terrorize the enemies who they perceive to be their enemies so that they leave Muslims alone.
Last month, more than 6,000 men joined the jihadists, some of them from Western nations.
This new phenomenon is stealing the younger generation. So what can we do about it? To answer this question, we have a very special guest with us here in the studio. He's professor of contemporary Islamic studies at Oxford University, visiting professor at the Faculty of Islamic Studies in Qatar, and the director of the Research Center of Islamic Legislation and Ethics. Dr. Tariq Ramadan, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for your invitation.
Thank you. You watched the video with us and you listened to the introduction that I had for the topic. What are your thoughts?
I think it's important for us to understand that there are two sides in this picture when we are talking about what is happening today. There is a religious side, which is what is the understanding of the Islamic teachings and the Islamic principles, and we have to tackle this issue because there is a misunderstanding about the concept of jihad, about the way we should be involved in politics wherever we live. The second side is political and social, because the attraction that we find among some of our young sisters and brothers, because we have also women going there, it's not only about religion, it's also about political attraction, misunderstanding of what is happening. So we need to get the complexity of it and not to come with simplistic answers to a very complex phenomenon.
Okay. So keeping in mind these two sides that you just presented or talked about, one of the most common questions asked when it comes to this topic is, how are these young people being radicalized?
So that's the point where we have different, a typology of people. At the beginning, we were told that, these are disenfranchised people in Western societies or around the world that are attracted by this, and it's not true. When I was dealing with the task force in the UK after 7/7 in the UK, and even involved in the discussions in the United States, and then also dealing with situations in Morocco or in Indonesia, the typology is much more complex than that, because what we have is very sophisticated students who can, got a PhD or master's involved in that, and sometimes very much integrated in that society, and you have disenfranchised. So we need to understand the psyche, and first to understand also that it's based on a binary vision of the Islamic principles. Is either you are a Muslim or you are a Kafir. So you are on the right side of the story or on the wrong side. And it's legitimate for you to use very specific verses of the Quran to kill people. And this is what we have to do. No, that's not the point. And it's not because you are ignorant, it's not because you are disenfranchised in your society that you have this dogmatic mind. Sometimes very educated people could have a dogmatic mind. So we need to address this with a very clear and strong political, religious discourse, Islamic discourse, by saying, no, you can't just take one verse and say this is Islamic. You have to take the overall message and understand that some verses should be contextualized. They were revealed in a very specific period of time, and you need to get the right understanding of jihad, which has nothing to do with killing innocent people. By the Islamic principles and in the name of Islam, it's wrong to kill innocent people. It's wrong to come with an understanding of jihad that is killing innocent people, killing not only, by the way, Westerners. We are talking about, you know, Muslims. We are talking about fellow Arabs and Muslims that are being killed there. And to say the way we have to deal with this violent extremist interpretation is not acceptable. So we need to come with a sophisticated religious answer to this. And the second point is also to get it right that sometimes when you are not respected within your society, when you are alienated within your society, this discourse that is giving a meaning to your life, a goal, while you were completely lost, and sometimes some of the people were in clubs and nightclubs just 1 week before going, and then all of a sudden become very religious. It means that there is something here which has to do with the psychological impact of trying to think or thinking that you are purifying yourself by going to kill. And this is where the Islamic discourse should be very, very clear on this is not the way to deal with the Islamic principles.
You kind of like touched upon the view of Islam to all of this, to the concept or to the phenomenon that's happening. You gave a lecture at the Islamic Association of Greater Detroit entitled American Muslim Identity, Challenges, Opportunities, and Prospects. And on March of last year, you said, and I quote, "Jihad is the way we implement Sharia by saying it has nothing to do with holy war. It's something which has something to do with resistance and positive presence." Can we apply the definition that you gave to the situation that we're facing here? Could the fact of fleeing to any of the countries like Syria or Iraq be associated with any kind of positive connotation?
No, I think that this is where it's important to understand the meaning of jihad. First, it has nothing to do with holy war, as I said, and it has nothing to do with something which is killing people, or it's not a way towards war. Jihad is a way towards peace, is when you resist oppression and you want peace, peace based on principles, which is justice and dignity. So this is where, for example, we need to get the right understanding that it's a double movement, is resisting the bad and reforming for the good. This is jihad. Now, when the people are going and say, okay, I'm going to support my brothers and sisters who are being killed in Iraq, say, hold on, that's not the way. Yes, there is oppression. Yes, there are people who are oppressing. There are dictatorships, and there are sometimes foreign countries that are going and invading in the name, you know, we know about the lies of the Bush administration during the first Gulf War. It happened. But how are you going to resist this? By killing innocent people? No, you have principles. You can't kill people, you can't kill, and for the sake of, you know, Islamic values, you are going to kill Christians and innocent people. This is not Islam. Islam is putting clear rules when it comes to ethics of war. So yes, sometimes you have to resist, but how are you going to resist? You have to resist by targeting the people who are targeting you. And then when you are somewhere, you live in the United States of America, you live in the West, or you live everywhere in the world, you are not going to follow anybody who is going to call for jihad and telling you, come and support me. First, is he Islamically equipped? Second, is it an institution? Is it right? And then what you have to do when there is oppression is to be with your presence, positive with your presence wherever you live. For example, to be an American citizen, or to be a citizen wherever you are, and to call for justice and to be the voice of the voiceless in a non-violent way. Violence is the ultimate resort when you are oppressed and when you are in a danger to be killed yourself. But this is not what we are talking about here. And we have people who are not Islamically equipped in Syria and Iraq. We have people who have a very narrow understanding of Islam, and they are a binary vision, a dogmatic vision, saying Muslims are all kuffar, meaning all infidels. In their mind, it means people who can be killed. We need to come with a strong Islamic discourse on this, and this is where we are to take my point on resistance and positive presence. Is whoever you are, wherever you live, measure your presence with the positive presence of being a citizen, being committed to principles, and to call for justice, but never by killing innocent people.
So the main issue here seems to be the wrong definition that people have, or some Muslims have, for the concept of jihad. We see, as we said, young students kind of like throwing everything behind them and going to these countries to fight under the concept of jihad. You said there is this big misunderstanding. How can we change that? Should we try to change it on an individual level, or should we aim for a bigger solution? We're talking about society, governments, and
it's multi-dimensional. I think that what you are saying is quite right. I think that there are wrong definitions and wrong understandings. So what we have to do is to educate people, and we educate people at different levels, and it depends on with whom you are dealing. For example, within academia, we need to also be able to teach what these concepts are. It's not by avoiding them, because what I heard from some administrations in the West say, we have to avoid talking about jihad. Jihad is a dirty word. I'm sorry, jihad is everywhere in the Quran. The point is not to avoid the term. The point is to give the right definition to the concept, and this is what we have to do. Now, it has to be done through our educational institutions, but it also have to do through the social networks, for example, everywhere. I myself, I'm involved on many social networks, and this is where you spread a better understanding. This is our responsibility as scholars. This is our responsibility as intellectuals. We need to do the job. And also something which is important, we have to stop being apologetic in a situation where we are justifying ourselves all the time, because the young people are right on one thing, is that we keep on repeating what Islam is not. We keep on saying, we are nice, we are kind, and at the end of the day, for a young citizen, for a young Muslim, that's not enough. You need to come with something which is a courageous political discourse, at the same time say what Islam is not and what Islam is, and what are the political issues that are important for us, because we need to have something substantial, something that can tell the people, look, this is the struggle to be promoted. This is where we have to be. But this kind of religious discourse, letting the people or the world know that we are nice, without the political concerns coming from injustices, dictatorships, lack of freedom, is not going to work. So we need another side, and the other side is the political discourse.
So you mentioned social media, and you also mentioned the political discourse as possible solutions to deal with this phenomenon. Do you think this could be applied differently, let's say in the Arab world or the Arab nation? We're talking about two sides of the same phenomenon here. We're talking about the Western world versus the Arab nation. Are there different solutions that should be implemented in these two parts of the world, or not?
That's a good question, and I would say, coming from the legal tradition, if you have studied law and if you have studied the Islamic legal traditions, for example, the Turath, which is coming from our tradition, you understand something which is important, which is we have to distinguish between principles and strategies and models. Principles are universal. We need to stick to principles when it comes to human justice and dignity, but the strategies are going to change depending on the context. So for example, when you live in the West, of course, you have the principles should be the same. And when you have what we called the Arab Spring, I never bought this concept. I was saying this is an Arab awakening, that you have young and not so young people in the streets calling for more justice, more dignity and more freedom. The same principles that we cherish everywhere. Now the strategies that you are going to implement depend on the situation, on the context, the social and political context. In the West, you should know that you should be involved with your fellow citizens in everything which has to do with justice and everything which has to do with self-critical approach towards our own governments. I'm a Swiss citizen. And I say this to my government. I think that what you are doing is wrong. You are supporting some countries that have nothing to do with democracy, and you are expecting the people to be happy with this. So just check your own consistency or inconsistency. So you have a strategy here which is freedom of speech. In the Muslim majority countries or in the Arab world, it's quite clear, and we know this. We're not going to pretend we don't know that the rights are not respected the same way that the room for freedom of speech is not the same. So you need here to spread awareness, to work for the same principles, knowing in which country you live, not by compromising with your principles, but to know how to improve the situation. It could be in any country in the Arab world that we need to stick to the principles, to say more freedom of expression, more dignity, more justice, a better and adapted Islamic discourse for the situation. Because if we keep on having a religious discourse that is completely disconnected from our reality, at the end, the people who are calling you with a black and white discourse are going to attract you. If we don't know how to teach complexity, people are going to be attracted by simplicity and simplistic answers. That's where we have to understand our responsibilities.
The last question, Dr. Ramadan, the way you framed the issue or the solution for this phenomenon seems to be, or makes it sound as the young generation is kind of trapped in a system that's way bigger than what they can deal with. It's something out of our control. It's something that we cannot necessarily change overnight. What do you have to say?
No, I think we can't change this overnight, but it's not out of our control. I think that if we are clear as to our principles, disciplined as to our strategies, and courageous as to our goals, we can change things. But we need more courage. By the way, we need more courageous religious scholars that are able to speak the truth, because, you know, there is a saying coming from the Islamic tradition, Afdalul Jihad, the best jihad is kalimatu haqqin amam sultan jair, which is a word of truth in front of or before a tyrant, meaning speaking the truth. This is what we need, is people being able to say this. And this is why you attract young people, because they want this, they want justice, and they want transparency, and they want some truth in the way. So we have to come with something which is this type of discourse, this type of understanding, and we need to work with time. It's a long process, education, and there is something also which is, don't lecture the people from your ivory tower, just be with them. Be as humble as you can to deal with people at the grassroots level. This is where you change things. It's not in our living rooms or in front or before our TV sets that you are going to change mentalities. So we have to be committed and consistent with our principles. It's not out of our control if only you understand that we have to be committed to change things within history.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Ramadan, for joining us in this episode. It's been a real pleasure having you here.